Have you ever found yourself obsessing over someone who doesn't care? Chasing validation from people who barely notice you? It's exhausting, but what if I told you the problem isn't them? According to Carl Jung, the reason you keep chasing has almost nothing to do with the other person, and everything to do with a hidden part of yourself you've been ignoring. Asterisk, we've all been there, texting first, making excuses for someone's indifference, or bending over backward for crumbs of attention. But here's the truth. When you chase people who don't reciprocate, you're not really pursuing them. You're running from yourself. Carl Jung, the legendary psychologist, revealed that our desperate need for certain people is often a mirror of our unconscious wounds, unmet needs, or even rejected aspects of our own psyche. In this video, we'll explore Jung's groundbreaking insights on why we chase, how projection distorts our relationships, and, most importantly, what to do instead. You'll learn how to break the cycle of seeking external validation and discover the profound shift that happens when you turn inward. By the end, you'll understand why letting go isn't about losing someone else, but about finally finding yourself. Carl Jung taught that much of what we desire in others is not really about them. It's about the parts of ourselves we haven't yet faced. This is the psychological mechanism of projection. We unconsciously assign our own unmet needs, hidden desires, or even repressed flaws onto someone else, then chase them as if they hold the answer. For example, if you grew up feeling unheard, you might become infatuated with charismatic, expressive people, not because they're inherently better, but because they embody the voice you've denied in yourself. The chase, then, isn't about love, it's about completion. And until you recognize the projection, you'll keep searching outside for what can only be found within. Beneath the surface of every chase is a deeper, more vulnerable force, the wounded inner child seeking the love it never received. If you were neglected, criticized, or made to feel unworthy in the past, you may spend adulthood desperately seeking reassurance from others, hoping they'll finally give you the approval you couldn't give yourself. But here's the painful truth. No amount of external validation can heal that void. The more you chase, the more you reinforce the belief that you're incomplete without someone else's attention. Jung warned that until you parent yourself, offering the love and security you missed, you'll remain trapped in cycles of pursuit and disappointment. Another hidden force driving the chase is the fear of abandonment, the terror of being alone, rejected, or deemed unworthy. Yet paradoxically, many who fear abandonment also fear engulfment, losing themselves in intimacy. This creates a maddening push-pull. You crave connection but sabotage it when it gets too close. For instance, you might chase an emotionally unavailable partner because, on some level, their distance feels safe. It allows you to pine for love without actually facing the vulnerability it requires. Jung would say this isn't an accident, it's unconscious self-protection. The very thing you fear, true intimacy, is the thing you need to confront to break the cycle. Imagine someone who's always drawn to partners who are aloof or inconsistent. On the surface, it seems like bad luck, but Jung would argue it's a mirror. Perhaps the chaser has their own unresolved fear of deep connection, buried beneath layers of longing. By fixating on someone who can't meet them emotionally, they get to simulate intimacy without the risk of truly being seen. The chase becomes a distraction from their own avoidance. The moment they stop running after others and turn inward, they'll see the truth. The love they've been seeking was never about the other person. It was always about the parts of themselves they've been too afraid to embrace. Every time you chase someone who doesn't reciprocate, you send yourself a dangerous subconscious message. Their attention is more valuable than my own dignity. This is where the real damage happens, not in the rejection you fear, but in the self-betrayal you enact by prioritizing someone else's validation over your own worth. Jung understood this as a form of self-abandonment, where the psyche fractures further with each desperate attempt to win love externally. The cruel irony? The more you diminish yourself in the chase, the less capable you become of recognizing or attracting genuine connection. You don't just lose the person you're chasing, you lose yourself in the process. Energy doesn't lie. When you operate from a place of lack, constantly seeking reassurance, overextending, or molding yourself to fit someone else's expectations, you emit a subtle vibration of neediness. And neediness, according to Jungian principles, is a self-fulfilling prophecy. It repels the very security you crave. Healthy relationships require two whole people choosing each other, not one person scrambling to prove their worth. This is why the moment you stop chasing and cultivate self-contained energy, rooted in your own purpose and fulfillment, you paradoxically become magnetic. The right people no longer feel pressured or burdened by your hunger for validation. They're drawn to your wholeness instead. Jung's most famous warning cuts to the core of this dynamic. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. Every chase is a symptom of something deeper, unhealed wounds, unrecognized projections, or fears you've refused to confront. When you avoid this inner work, you remain a prisoner of patterns you don't even understand, doomed to repeat cycles of pursuit and disappointment. But here's the turning point. The moment you bring these shadows into awareness, you reclaim agency. The chase loses its power because you're no longer acting from blind compulsion. You see the game for what it is, and you're finally free to walk away. The first step is to recognize that the qualities you're desperately seeking or reacting to in others are disowned fragments of yourself. When you find yourself magnetized by someone's confidence or devastated by their indifference, pause and ask, where in my life have I neglected this very quality within me? This is the essence of shadow work, withdrawing the projections that keep you trapped in cycles of chasing. The emotionally unavailable partner, the aloof friend, the dismissive parent. Each becomes a mirror revealing where you've abandoned yourself. The goal isn't to blame yourself, but to reclaim the power you've outsourced. Jung's concept of individuation, the process of becoming your complete, authentic self, is the antidote to chasing. This isn't about isolation. It's about developing an unshakable inner foundation so that your relationships become choices, not needs. Start by carving out sacred time for self-discovery, journaling to decode your patterns, engaging in creative expression to reconnect with suppressed desires, or simply sitting in silence to distinguish your voice from the noise of others' expectations. The more you cultivate this relationship with yourself, the less you'll tolerate one-sided connections. There's a quiet power in stillness. When you stop orchestrating, manipulating, or forcing connections, you create space for organic reciprocity, the kind that can't be manufactured through effort. This doesn't mean passive waiting. It means investing your energy in pursuits that light you up so fully that you become indifferent to those who don't match your vibration. Notice how the dynamics shift when you're no longer feeding the chase. Some people will step up, others will fade away, and both outcomes are equally revealing. The final shift is from need to sovereignty, the ability to validate yourself so thoroughly that others' presence becomes a bonus, not a requirement. Practice this by setting micro-boundaries, saying no when you mean no, walking away from lukewarm energy, and resisting the urge to over-explain yourself. As Jung knew, true freedom comes when you stop seeking yourself in others and instead offer yourself the love you've been begging for. This is how chasing transforms into choosing. The moment you stop chasing, something fascinating happens. People either step up or step away, and both outcomes are victories. Those who were taking you for granted suddenly realize they can no longer access your energy on demand. Some may respond with newfound respect, recognizing your boundaries as strength rather than rejection. Others will vanish, not because you weren't enough, but because they were never truly aligned with your worth. This isn't loss, it's liberation. The people who remain are the ones who choose you, not the ones you had to convince. When you approach connections from a place of inner fullness, the dynamics transform entirely. Instead of relationships built on neediness or insecurity, you attract bonds based on mutual growth and respect. Jung called this the difference between projection, seeing others as saviors, and conscious relating, seeing them as they truly are. You stop repeating old patterns, like pursuing emotionally unavailable partners or people-pleasing, because you no longer seek others to fill a void. The love you experience becomes deeper, quieter, and far more sustainable because it's no longer a lifeline. It's a choice. Every time you chase someone, you leak life force, the mental and emotional energy that could be spent creating, healing, or simply enjoying your life. When you stop chasing, that energy returns to you in waves. You'll notice it in small ways: more creativity, clearer thinking, a renewed sense of possibility. This is what Jung meant when he spoke of libido, psychic energy. It's not just about sexuality, but the vital force that fuels your entire being. Redirected inward, it becomes the catalyst for profound personal transformation. Consider the woman who stopped begging her distant partner for attention and instead poured that energy into her art. Within months, not only did her creativity flourish, but her partner, no longer pressured, began to initiate closeness on his own. Or the man who quit chasing friendships with people who subtly belittled him and instead joined a community aligned with his passions. The new connections he formed were effortless, rooted in shared values rather than desperation. These aren't exceptions. They're the natural result of withdrawing projections and standing firmly in your own worth. The most profound relationship you'll ever have is the one you cultivate with yourself. Chasing others is ultimately a distraction, a way to avoid the vulnerable, transformative work of true self-reclamation. As Carl Jung reminds us, who looks outside, dreams, who looks inside, awakes. The moment you stop seeking completion in others and turn inward, everything changes. The right people appear, the wrong ones fade, and you, no longer exhausted by the chase, discover a deeper kind of freedom, the freedom to choose not from need, but from wholeness. This is your invitation to begin. Start small. The next time you feel the pull to chase, whether it's a text left unanswered, a friendship that feels one-sided, or a longing for validation, pause. Ask yourself, what part of me is seeking something outside that I could give to myself right now? That simple question is the first step toward breaking the cycle. If this resonated with you, let's keep the conversation going. Drop a comment below. Which Jungian concept hit home the most? Was it the idea of projections? The wounded inner child? Or the power of emotional sovereignty? Your insights inspire this community. And if you haven't already, subscribe, because next week, we're diving deeper into Jung's shadow work with a video that'll change how you see toxic relationships, how to spot narcissists using Jung's shadow theory. You won't want to miss it.